Sean, both sides have or appear to be reaching the point where their weapons reserves are being exhausted. How can the war continue?
Well, one of the things that the West has obviously, going back to grand strategic now, Ukraine is the David to Russian Goliath. So if they were simply to do a war of attrition, the big guy normally wins. What the West has done very effectively is provided technology and weapons, anti-tank weapons, modern tanks, etc., which has provided enough an advantage for Ukraine to stop the Russian advance and then push them back a bit. The problem is that you also still need lots of conventional weapons like artillery shells and bullets. But the volume that this war is consuming far exceeds whatever war stocks are out there. Now, up till now, the West has provided immediate supplies of weapons from our own war stocks. But I have to remember when I was in the MOD, we never had enough money to buy more than we needed. We always had slightly fewer rockets, slightly smaller piles of ammunition than we wanted. We would carry what they euphemistically called risk, which effectively said we haven't got enough money to do. So most of those supplies have already taken a bit of a hit. But this is true for both sides. Russia's also very short. The difference, though, is Russia commissioned North Korea to provide 1 million rounds of artillery. North Korea needs the money. It also needs lots of other tech advantages that Russia's prepared to trade. Meanwhile, the West turned around and said we would generate 1 million rounds of artillery for Ukraine. North Korea's delivered. The West has not.
Yeah.
And if you look at Iran, Iran is providing Russia with drones and missiles. Where are those coming from for the West? They may not be as high tech as the West has got. Quantity has a quality all of its own. And the third thing is Russia has a defense industrial base. It's a superpower that just needs money to be thrown into it. Russia has oil revenues still flowing in that can create the revenue. So Russia will be able to generate huge supplies of weapons. What does Ukraine do?
Yeah, so the big difference is North Korea, Russia, Iran. These are dictatorships, essentially. America, England, these are democracies, and there's a process to go through, and a lot of things are stuck, for instance, in Congress in the US.
Well, this is where money counts for a lot. So you can't just raid the cellar here. No. Ultimately, you have to start building. So you have to create a defense industrial base that will now generate wartime levels of weapons, because you can't just give stuff out of your old stock. I was going to decommission this, or I can give it away. I'll give it away. We did that for a year or two. Can't do that anymore. So how do you spin up the defense industrial base to produce the quantities we need? And what's fascinating is that whilst the industry is very good normally in the West at spinning up to meet demand, because it's all about money. In the artillery shells domain, industry, I understand, is able to spin up to 1 million rounds a year, but the West hasn't been prepared to fund it yet. And that, I think, speaks volumes about Western democracies. We've all got priorities about cost of living crisis, about huge national debt following COVID, etc. National Health Service needs more money. Where do we put that money? And at the moment, we're not prepared to invest in the way that Russia's investing. We're not securing weapons the way that Russia is. And if the West doesn't do that, bluntly, there are pretty bleak prospects for Ukraine ahead, because however determined they are, however hard they fight, however courageous they are on the battlefield, they will lose if they don't get the weapons to match or exceed what Russia has.
So Britain's got a cost of living crisis and a cost of giving crisis.